Alright, so today I'm going to go ahead and pull out this water cooling unit because we got some issues. It's got some algae in there and it's very difficult to tell because one, the tubes are so bloody old, they're covered in dirt. Two, the coolant's so dark that, yeah, there's signs of growth in there and the water cooling aspect is not working out. So this is all going to get drained, pulled, and redone. Oh, this is going to take a while. Take a while indeed, especially getting out that radiator. Alright, so due to this drain, I'm going to go ahead and put this in an old dish pan and try to unplug this little hose down here. This may take a while and some work because this thing's been on here for so long. It's not even funny. Can I actually work it off? Oh, there we go. It's coming off now. Oh yeah, nice little pink goop down here. So I use an old dish pan so that way be nice and disposable. Yeah, there's definitely some little bit of cloudy stuff in there. Don't know if you can see it, but it is some things in there. Now, of course, there's still more in the actual system itself. This is going to take a while to finish doing, so we'll just go ahead and fast forward. Okay, here's a quick glimpse of the PC with all the water cooling out of it. No radiator, no water block, no nothing. So all the drainage with the pump right there. And there's our CPU block. Radiator, which I'm going to go ahead and clean that because I'm sure you can probably see all the dust in there. Quite nasty. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and start cleaning this radiator. As you can see, a lot of dust in here. So this is important no matter what. I'm going to be installing some quick disconnects to install and get rid of these barbs. The quick disconnects will allow me to go ahead and disconnect the hose without getting any water or coolant anywhere. So when I get this build up right here, I can easily remove the radiator and just clean it out, pop it right back in, and install it with no problems. This is a thing that you really want to keep up on because, once again, this will keep your water cooling from reaching its optimal temperatures. So that's a bit of a thing here as well. Normally, I wouldn't be doing all this on a regular coolant flush. I would probably disconnect the hose and pull it out and just put coolant in after emptying it. But since this coolant's been over a year, probably going on 2 years, and there was some algae in the system, it needed it. So that could not be helped with this large breakdown, but at least, you know, and now we'll get this addressed right here. We'll have some new installed pieces so that way in the future, cleaning this won't be so difficult. Okay, so after getting all the coolant out of the radiator and the cooling block, I went ahead and poured some distilled water into these things to rinse them out, make sure they were clean. Then I filled both of them up with some white distilled vinegar, so that way we can go ahead and make sure anything that may be still in there will be killed off and cleaned out. So after this thing about 30 to 45 minutes tops, we'll go ahead and rinse it out with the rest of the distilled water. Probably should have bought a second gallon, that would have been really helpful. But we'll rinse those out and get those things ready for reinstallation. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and take some of this rubbing alcohol. What is this, 91% isopropyl? And I'm going to clean off my processor because we're going to have to go ahead and reinstall some more thermal paste. This is old, not going to cut it, so I'll go ahead and get a cloth or some cotton swabs, clean that off. Same thing with the other side of the cooling block, so that way we can make a nice clean connection and keep up top efficiency for cooling. Okay, I started sometime after 10 o'clock and it's already afternoon. Well, I've already cleaned off the radiator. I put new fittings on here for our quick disconnect. Will make things a lot easier in the future for changes. And I think everything's ready to go for the most part. Everything's set up, cleaned off, ready for reinstallation. Now is the most pivotal part. I got to get the hose out and start doing measuring and cutting. Hooray. Now I got 7 foot of tubing here, depending upon what kind of water cooling setup it is. May need more, may need less. But 7 foot of tubing here. I got to cut twice, well, measure twice, cut once. I don't want to cut twice or I'm in deep trouble. So with that, this will take a little bit while. I may go ahead and just take a break for now because this next part will be a little bit daunting as I begin to put things back and start to cut. So measuring the tubing is going to go like this. I've already got my tube set up. I've got to insert one part down on the pump right there and then try to measure it up to the next part, which is the CPU cooling block, and I'll cut it up a length off just enough to make this work without having any sharp bends or turns. And then from there, I'll insert another piece on the next part and run that up to the quick disconnect up top here, which probably won't result in a lot of tubing, but still, you want to cut just enough so you have maybe a smidget of playroom. Now, all of these parts aren't in very tightly, because at the end, I'm going to make the job of refilling this a lot easier. If not, refilling becomes a major pain and probably one of the hardest parts of redoing this whole loop. Out of 7 foot of hose, I got maybe 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet tops left over. That's why you always buy extra, because you never know how much you're going to use. Sometimes the perfect cuts you think you have aren't so perfect as all. But at least everything else is pretty much set up in here. Now, everything's not locked in tight yet. This is just a little prototype to see everything, make sure it fits. So I'm going to go ahead and take all of this out and fill it up before we get started, because if not, the upper parts like the radiator will have a heck of a time getting air out and fluid in. So that's why we'll go ahead and do that. But at least the cutting and measuring done after an hour. Alright, well, I partly assembled the loop here. I put everything together, then took it apart, so that way we could go ahead and fill the line. I used a quick disconnects after filling everything up to make things easier. So there's the reservoir, filled with coolant, of course. So now I'm just going to go ahead and try to go ahead and make everything work. Before I do that, though, I'm going to put some silicone paste on the processor, so that way we can put it on the water block. That way we can keep that nice and cool. Without it, it'll burn up. And then begin to put everything back. Alright, there's our coolant, thermal coolant right there anyway. So if you have a credit card or anything really, just go ahead and try to spread it out just a little bit. You don't want it to be too thin, but at the same time, you don't want it to be too thick either. You don't want to cover the entire area, but you want to cover most of it. So that way, you've got a nice large area taken care of. And I cannot do this with the camera in my hand, so let me take care of this. Okay, so this is it. After cycling the computer on and off several times to go ahead and get all the air out of the system, everything is legitimately good to go. So we went from purple to orange. Now everything's set up and works good. I'll go ahead and post any information in the video description of how things are running, but everything should be good now with a lot cooler temperatures, better performance, and just overall style in here. So that's going to do it for this video.